Hello, everyone. This is Thomas Pepin, NHL Talk. I'm Thomas Pepin, and let's talk about the NHL. So first, I should say, if you're still in here, Caleb, hello again. I see your comments there. Thanks for tuning in. Oh, you are here. Cool. So, hey, Caleb. Um, and so today, continuing the NHL expansion series, where we talk about failed franchises or potential new franchises and whether or not they could be successful. And in this case, we're talking about a failed franchise, which is the Cleveland Barons. It's the only one of the ones that I think it's the only one of all the failed franchises and of the ones I'm going to talk about that I had never heard of. I didn't even know it existed. Mind you, there's also the Kansas City team. I didn't know what the team name was, but I knew that there was one in Kansas City. But anyways, so we're talking about the Cleveland Barons, and just a moment to get things all pulled up here. And thankfully, I had enough time to get things somewhat started. Well, I mean, pulled up at least. So I'm ready to. Sorry, one sec. Okay, so I can share. And sorry, one sec. Okay, so well, I have Columbus pulled up here. So that's one of the teams we're going to compare to. And otherwise, I mean, yeah, to start off, we do a bunch of data gathering. And that's how we'll start. So for the most part, I'm just gathering and recording the data to begin this stream. I might talk about things as we go through, but it's minimal. It's more towards the end here that I kind of discuss things. So should I start with? Yeah, let's start with the most difficult thing. And yes, Caleb, I saw your message, but it's not letting me show it. It's giving me an error every time. But like I said previously, I can't constantly go check videos of everybody else's. So I appreciate you making a video if it was about me again, but I can't check everything. Sorry. So we'll start with actually I should put this full screen. So we've got Cleveland and Columbus is close, but I mean, the thing I was looking at, so I only looked at it briefly because, as always, this is always done on the spot, no prep work except for the subject. So, in this case, I did happen to just look because I wanted to see if it was even worthwhile to discuss Cleveland as a potential franchise. And what I noticed was that Columbus and Pittsburgh are so close. And so right away, I figured why oops. Why shouldn't I? Like, and I mean Pittsburgh to Washington and Columbus to Detroit. What else is close? Columbus to Chicago is semi-close. So really, yeah, I mean, teams can be close as long as there's a market for it. So it was at least worth investigating. And yeah, so anyway, so that's a little bit of work I did before just to see if it makes any sense. Now, the previous stream we spoke about California, and some of these franchises are super, super close. Mind you, the population is dramatically higher than here, so they can accommodate teams probably better. So there's an argument there, but in any case, so Cleveland to Columbus is 140 miles, and then Columbus to Pittsburgh 180, Pittsburgh to Washington 240. What's another example of close teams? Well, you know what? They're kind of, I guess, a bit more dispersed. So the closest that you're going to have is Columbus and Pittsburgh. So this is getting on the close side. Now, mind you, one sec here. Let's see. Anaheim to Los Angeles. See, this is what I mean. 25 miles. But again, you have to remember that the geez, it takes 40 minutes to travel 20 miles. Yeah, that's bad. I know traffic's bad there, but I didn't know it was that bad. Anyways, so like I said, population's a lot larger than in this case, but I mean, if they can be 25 miles apart, even with a population, it seems like, I mean, it's not crazy to think that. Actually, that's a good question. That's further. Oh, never mind. Okay. So that kind of gives you an idea, just as a starting point, that it might be too close to be able to handle a team, but we're going to play around with some data here and we'll figure that out. So municipalities, I guess. Wow, so it's already not looking so good. So Columbus is like 3 times the population of Cleveland. So let's use this. This. Now, what's the distance? Cleveland to Toledo. 100 miles, that's getting pretty far for commuting for games. 2 hours, yeah, I don't know if that's gonna work. Akron's right beside, that's doable. So we'll add Akron's population to Cleveland. So now it's getting a bit closer. Now, what's some other... Dayton's far. Cincinnati's too far. Toledo, Akron, Dayton. Youngstown is close. We can add in Youngstown. Because the thing is Ohio's, if I'm not mistaken, one of the bigger hockey states. Is there any other populations? Oh, Lorraine's close. I mean, we're really stretching here, but you know, trying to give it a shot. Where's Hamilton? Oh wow. I guess we'll go down to 50,000. Springfield. Oops. That's far. Kettering. Far. Elira. Super close. Lakewood. Is that it right there? Oh. So, I mean, there's a lot of surrounding populations. It's not looking as bad as I thought it would. Like wood, huh? Pun. Newark. Okay, so that's that. Now I should do the same thing since I'm being generous to Cleveland. I should be likewise generous to Columbus. Also, it'll make it closer to like when we're doing the calculations and stuff. How far is Dayton? Dayton to Columbus. 70 miles, that's fine. I mean, we're going to have most of the population, so it's going to be, should be pretty representative in the end. Whereas with California, it was a bit difficult because there's just so much population, so dispersed, that we had to do more of estimates than in this case. Cincinnati, I would say, is too far. Toledo's far. Akron was with Cleveland. Dayton was southwest. Yes. Did I add Dayton already? Parma. Did I miss that? I think I did. Oh, so I got another one added to Cleveland. Canton. Did I add Canton to 70458? 70458. I didn't. I don't know why. I did add Youngstown, I think. 64958, yes. Lorraine, I did. Where was Hamilton again? I think that was far, right? Yeah, that's a bit too far. Springfield. That one is close enough. Kettering, I can't remember. I did do Dayton, so I might as well add Kettering to that too, because they're pretty close. Elvira, I think, was close to Cleveland, right? Yes. Lakewood was there. New York was... Where was that again? Oh, well, that's close. and that's our cutoff point. So the population's, I mean, within a reasonable distance to the cities. They're very similar, so it's not so. I thought it was going to be way more far fetched for Cleveland to function, but I don't think so in the end. And the other one I left out, but oops. So what I'm thinking, I don't know if this is going to be the case. So Toledo, if you're a fan of hockey and you're in Toledo, would you be more likely to be a fan of a Cleveland team because they're in Ohio, or would you go to Detroit because it's closer? I don't know what they would do. I mean, if you were to consider a team, you'd maybe want to do some research on that and just, like surveys and stuff like that to see, I forget the term. Likelihood to purchase or something like that. Anyways, there's a term for it in marketing. And you could see if like what they would choose if they would choose between the two. So so maybe there's more to Cleveland than it seems, but we'll just leave it as is for now. The next thing I wanted was 2018 population, Ohio. Okay, well, I guess we'll have to go by this 11.68. Then what's the current? It's essentially the same. So we'll just use the current numbers then. I mean, it's off by 3 years, but that's fine. So we're missing a massive chunk of the population. Where is the rest of that population? Is that in Cincinnati then? Or is it just that dispersed? That doesn't seem right. What? Huh. I guess that just seems weird. So it's that spread out. We'll just, I guess, assume that it's correct. Now, one other thing I shouldn't have close that. So what we're gonna do is so what we'll do is the hockey registration will do 2/3 of the total for purposes of our calculations, because essentially Cincinnati is 1/3 of the population of the major population bases, and then you add in the attaching cities, and it's pretty darn close. So, wait, is that right? Wait. So, no. Let's actually properly do the math. So, 8, 9, 2 plus 3, 3 plus 302. 302 divided by... Oh, yeah, because I forgot about Toledo 275. Then 892 plus 383 divided by that. Yeah, it was close anyways. So we'll round down in this case. We'll make it 2/3, like I was saying. And that's okay. Because, as always, not getting paid for this, so good enough's good enough. So, okay, so the total population is this. I don't need that, though. We're going to take I don't need these. Ohio hockey registration is... It's one of the higher ones. So equals 16882 times 2 divided by 3. And get it down to... equals this plus this. And then we want B14 divided by that, I believe. Okay, so we've got the hockey registration times 2/3, and then we take B14 divided by B14 plus B15. So that gets you the representation of the total population we're considering times that. So that should be correct. I think that's right. I'll copy that down. Wait, no, we want it like this. And then we want B15 divided by B14 plus B15. Let's make sure the math is correct. And it is. So that should be good. Now, actually I don't need these anymore. Okay, so the attendance minimum was 5676. Barons. What was their arena? So that's their capacity. So they didn't do that great. And just out of interest, I want to make sure where this is. Okay, so it's right between Cleveland and Akron. Cool, okay. So, next we need league average in 77, 78. 77, 78. That divided by 720. Cool. Yeah, we might as well do it for Columbus while we're at it. Wow, I'm surprised their attendance is so good when they're so bad this year. But it's good news for them. So their worst year was 2010-11. That was not a lockout year. Since I'm already here, let's do this. 1, 2, 3, 0, 6. Cool. Minimum attendance was 1, 3, 6, 5, 8. 1, 3, 6, 5, 8. 1, 3, 6, 5, 8. 1, 3, 6, 5, 8. 1, 3, 6, 5, 8. 1, 3, 6, 5, 8. 1, 3, 6, 5, 8. 1, 3, 6, 5, 8. 1, 3, 6, 5, 8. 1, 3, 6, 5, 8. 1, 3, 6, 5, 8. 1, 3, 6, 5, 8. 1, 3, 6, 5, 8. 1, 3, 6, 5, 8. 1, 3, 6, 5, 8. 1, 3, 6, 5, 8. 1, 3, 6, 5, 8. 1, 3, 6, 5, 8. 1, 3, 6, 5, 8. 1, 3, 6, 5, 8. 1, 3, 6, 5, 8. 1, 3, 6, 5, 8. 1, 3, 6, 5, 8. 1, 3, 6, 5, 8. 1, 3, 6, 5, 8. 1, 3, 6, 5, 8. Maximum attendance. Wow, right at the beginning they were doing very well. I mean, the fact that they're doing so good and the team's not doing so well is pretty promising. 1, 3, 6. Maximum, they're only there 2 years, but we'll still put that. 6, 1, 9, 4. League average 76, 77. That divided by 720. And Columbus was 2000, 2001. Divided by 1230. Cool. The capacity for pretty cool. This is one arena I have been to in the States. Yeah, it was right smack downtown. 1850. Cool. Don't need that. What else? We want valuation of the Blue Jackets. Yikes, not so good. 475. Then we can drag down. Cool, and then I think we are good to talk about it. Let's close that. So just to start, one thing I want to say is, I mean, it's a tiny sample size, and it's just very odd that they move a franchise there, only give it 2 years, and then it's done. Again, we're not considering all the factors that caused the failures. So it could have been ownership, could have been arena wasn't good enough, although it was big enough, so maybe it was old, who knows. Who knows? There's a whole bunch of different reasons, and those are not factors we're considering. Again, what we're considering is underlying indicators of if it could be successful. And so one argument I've made is that local industry is generally good enough in most major cities. An article I read was talking about how strong Atlanta was, and I mean, great, but if you have no hockey fans, I don't think it's going to be sustainable. Um, Maybe financially though, so I mean, it's relevant, but and I don't know again what percentage of revenue is driven by fans. So, for example, attendance. Um, what's the term? Like clothing and stuff. Anyways, there's a term for it. I'm gapping right now. Um, so and stuff like that. So I'm not sure. Maybe I'm underestimating how important the local industry is to a team's success, but it just doesn't feel like it's that critical in the end. But anyways, okay, so yeah, we've got a small sample size here, so not really much to talk about with the history for Cleveland. Um, was it the Seals before or after? I could have sworn that they were connected. Um, so it was the Seals before the Barons, and then the Barons merged with the North Stars. That's what it is. Okay. I like their jerseys. Pretty cool. Um, so, anyways, uh, and just I would say this is pretty interesting. The fact that the maximum attendance in 2 years is similar to the maximum attendance for the whole duration in California. And the minimum is greater than the minimum of California. Now, the one counter argument to that point is that Columbus didn't exist. So there's going to be some sort of overlap in fan base where, what's the term? Cannibalized sales, I believe, is the right one. So I don't know what overlap there would in theory be between the two teams, but I don't know. It's hard to say. But it's one of the stronger fan base states that are out there. Actually, I'm going to pull that back up. I want to reference it here. So as a percentage of the population, Ohio is, what is that, 10th-ish? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 10th. So, I mean, that's pretty... Oh, it's not in order by percentage of population, so my bad. That's total number of players. Ohio sits... Oh, pretty far down. I thought it was better than that. So it's just total quantity. It's not percentage of the population. Huh. I didn't know that some of these other ones were so high considering their population. Like North Dakota, I mean, I know they have a good university for hockey, but Vermont, I wouldn't have thought of. Maine, but I mean, it makes sense. They're in their locations and weather and stuff. But, anyways, interesting. So, just out of interest, because maybe what it is that Ohio, yeah, it's one of the most populated states. So it kind of makes sense that it would seem like the registration's low because you're just dealing with a huge population. Anyways, just thought I'd look at that. So now, just to, I guess, use this as another reference point for maybe the sustainability of the fan base, I guess you could say, is to take a look at the fluctuations and how dramatic they are, and use Columbus as an example because we only had 2 years for Cleveland. So when you look at it, I mean, it's not too crazy. It does get low, though. We'll take a look at the percentages in a second, but just visually, I mean, it's not too huge of swings. So again, still looks kind of promising. And now we'll take a look at the percentages. So registration as a percentage of the population, we kind of fudge those numbers a little bit to make it work from having two franchises we're dealing with simultaneously. So just kind of disregard that number, but yeah. So anyways, on the low end, the minimum attendance compared to capacity was 30.61% in Cleveland, which is much better than California. 30.61. Somewhat comparable to Colorado. For a team that was only there 2 years, mind you, I mean, it could have easily been the same case for Colorado. So it seems like at the time, still maybe Colorado would have been a better market, maybe. Let's have a look at that actually. So the worst year for Colorado was when? 78, 79. And so it was essentially the same time frame. So you are kind of comparing apples to apples in this case. And so on the low end, the Rockies and Cleveland are similar in fan base, you could argue, similar. Again, that's kind of skewed because you don't have Columbus in the picture in the past. And then Columbus on the low end, 73.83. So that is better than Anaheim's worst. Better than Atlanta's worst. Better than the first version of the Winnipeg Jets. So the one problem is that, so because they're so close to each other, the two cities, Cleveland and Columbus, my gut tells me that maybe the fan base would be, or the potential fan base would be similar to something like Winnipeg. And if the attendance is lower than Winnipeg's current attendance, so the worst attendance for Columbus is lower than the worst for the second version of the Winnipeg Jets, then I feel like that's somewhat concerning about how bad it could get on the low end if two teams existed in Ohio. Now, the one thing we have to remember, though, is I noticed is that in in the past few years, the attendance has been quite good. It's better than, I mean, it's kind of so you have the hype of the team coming to Columbus at the beginning, which is why it makes sense that it would be so high there to begin. And then it kind of dips, I guess, with performance and a number of different things, probably. But it's gone up, and the performance hasn't been that outstanding as of late. So it indicates to me that it's a strong market no matter what the performance is, which is promising. So then as a result, if there's two teams in the market or in, relatively close proximity, I still think, because if they're trending that high, then it feels like they're trending to be able to accommodate a second franchise. Kind of, is what I would argue. I don't know if it would necessarily be the case, but it feels like that. So I'd say in that case, again, you're contrasting it with the worst case scenarios and with the trends in Ohio. It seems like it's not that far-fetched for Cleveland to succeed. And what's odd about this is before the start of the stream, I was really thinking, oh no, this is just not going to look good. But it's looking a lot better than I thought it would. Anyways, so continuing through on the high end of attendance, the high end for the Barons was not very good. It was lower than the next worst, or up to this point, the worst franchise, which was California's worst season. So that's not very good. But now with Columbus, the maximum attendance. See, the one thing is that's not at capacity. So it's still, so yeah, they've grown, but it feels like they still have room for growth. So maybe it would be too early to get into Cleveland. It seems like it's trending in the direction where they could go there, but still too early. Really, what you would want is for Columbus to have near capacity or at capacity the majority of the years. It's close, but still slightly off, I would argue. Yeah. But it's best year is still better than Atlanta's best year. It's better than the first Winnipeg Jets. Better than the Colorado Rockies. So those, I mean, we're starting to get a bit further back in the past, so it's not quite apples to apples, but the Thrashers are close enough. And yeah, I mean, Columbus is still doing better than the best of Atlanta. So I mean, in terms of, so you're contrasting the two, Atlanta and Columbus. Well, it's very clear that Columbus should exist, and it's a better option than Atlanta. The problem then is determining if Cleveland is a better alternative than Atlanta, and it's hard to say. We're kind of getting a bit close here. So another thing to consider here, we've got minimum versus the league. And so with the Barons, they were, because you want to compare it to the same season, And so they did better than California's best year. It was similar to the Rockies' best year. Man, it's got some good indicators in there. And the worst season for Columbus versus the league was 79.56. And that's better than Anaheim. Better than Atlanta. Basically the same as the new Winnipeg Jets. Basically the same as Colorado. So at the very least, you know for sure that Columbus should be here to stay. The problem is, so one last thing just before I kind of go into that. So if you compare the best year to the league average in that best year, Columbus had 109.49% of the league average. So that's nearly as good as Minnesota. So clearly, I mean, on the high end, it's one of the stronger markets for fan bases, I would say. And on the low end, it's still comparable to some of the, lower ones that we've looked at so far. So like Colorado, Winnipeg and stuff. So I don't know. So it's really tough to say. And I forget what I was just about to say regarding the minimum versus the league. So yeah, so okay, I guess what I was going to say is it's the same principle. So on the low end, it's still as good as some of the other markets that are, in theory not as strong. So like California. So it seems, it's like I said, basically that Columbus seems like it's here to stay. I think that seems certain based on, well, as long as, just completely take out ownership from the thoughts here, because like I've said previously, ownership groups could mess up any team or any of the not major franchises. So if you take that out of the picture just from a fan base market kind of perspective, it seems like Columbus is here to stay. Then, like I said, the question is can the area, because they are relatively close to each other, Cleveland and Columbus, could it support a second team with that kind of strength? And that's where, so like I noticed about the valuation, it's one of the lowest valued franchises, and that's a problem. So what I would say is, in that case, it's probably somewhat connected to the industry in the area and the value of like sponsorships and rentals of boxes and things like that, all the different other drivers of revenue. It seems like the market's not very good, or sorry, industry market, whatever you want to call it. So that's kind of a bit of a struggle. So if you brought in another team, are they too close? And then you're going to, like I said, cannibalize some of the income, cannibalize some of the fan base. So that's where I think my I think this is the main point that I made. So what I would argue is that the market is, at least from a fan base perspective, is growing and is quite strong in Columbus. The problem is I don't think it's quite big enough to support a second franchise so close to Columbus. And again, like I said, there's Pittsburgh, which is, semi close, but people, I would argue, would be unlikely. So if you're from Pennsylvania, you're probably not going to go and become a Columbus fan. I would very much doubt it. You're either going to be a Pittsburgh or a Philly fan. Whereas Columbus, you could say, could be a Pittsburgh fan, could be a fan of a number of places, could be a Detroit fan. So I think the fan base is starting, now that the teams existed for so long, and younger people are becoming fans and things like that. I think the fan base is going to grow that now that they have an established franchise in Ohio and specifically Columbus. And so that's good. So that's going to take away probably from the other franchises and stabilize this one. And so that's great. So like I said, the point I guess I'm trying to make here is that Columbus is good. They're fine. They're probably going to be stable, and they're probably going to grow. I just don't think there's enough space for another team at this point. Is it one of those expansion teams that could theoretically exist in the future? I would say it's quite possible. It seems like it could, but I think it's a bit far away for that to be a consideration. I don't think it's quite a strong enough market to be sustainable in the short term, even in the long run, maybe. But you got to get through the short term, and I just don't think it doesn't seem, again, because we're just using a small number of data points and doing rough estimates. It just doesn't seem like it's big enough to support another team given the proximity to Columbus. I think that's the best way to summarize. One other thing, just before we move on, I do want to have a look at other teams that exist currently. Whoops. So, we don't want ECHL to start, we want AHL. So, Cleveland Monsters, I think they're one of the most stable franchises in the AHL. Because I remember always hearing about them. So, it's not one of the oldest, but it's also not one of the youngest. Man, and it's grown. Like, look at that. That is quite interesting. So it seems like, what I would argue, that my instinct is pretty accurate. So, because that's just a straight line growth. And like I said with Columbus, it looks like it's the same sort of thing. The problem here is that on the high end, 9,000 is not enough for an NHL franchise. So, and that's like their best year. You compare that to the Rockies, it's below that. Minimum year 9,000, below Atlanta even. So, but it's not far off. That's really close, and I would say very promising. What's the capacity for their arena? There it is. Capacity is 9,447. So they're almost at their capacity that I think they're essentially currently using, which is good. It's still too low though. So it's like I said, I think basically exactly like I kind of predicted. It seems like a quite reasonable place to consider expansion, maybe in the future, maybe. Now, of course, we have to consider we've got so many other alternatives. Like we saw California, the potential's, I would say, dramatically better. So when you're choosing between the two, I would choose California over Cleveland. But yeah, it's not so far-fetched that a team could work in Cleveland. And is there anything else? Cincinnati, Toledo. Yeah. And Toledo was... Yeah, so there's... It seems like the second best market for hockey in Ohio. So, yeah, it makes sense. So I think that's a good point to end this at. So to kind of summarize, I think in the end, Cleveland is not as far-fetched of a potential expansion option as I would have predicted before the stream began. I thought it was going to be hands down, clear, wouldn't work because of the competing franchise in Columbus. I thought for sure it wasn't going to work. But I've surprised myself with all the data and stuff that I've gathered, and it turns out that it's not so far-fetched. It's quite reasonable that Cleveland could succeed at some point, just not yet. And it's probably pretty far down the line. Let's say that, for example, the Winnipeg Jets failed. Could a team relocate to Cleveland and survive? Maybe. It's not so crazy of an idea. Yeah, I would say that maybe it's a backup location right now. It's not one of the worst markets. It's reasonable. So anyway, so that's basically all I got. So if you like the stream, hit the like button, share with your friends, subscribe, turn on notifications. Otherwise, the channel homepage has upcoming streams. Should be now 3 p.m. Daily Eastern 3 p.m. Eastern daily, except for Sundays. And if you're wondering what the time is for your time zone, have a look at the channel homepage for upcoming streams. That'll tell you. Otherwise, any comments, leave them in the comments. Suggestions, same thing. And tomorrow we are going to discuss, as I mentioned, I think every single one of these are interesting, but another interesting one, in a different way, Hartford and the Hartford Whalers. We're going to talk about them. And I'm really looking forward to, I think, this one more so than probably all of them, of the failed franchises at least, because my prediction is that Hartford's going to be one of the best options. I don't know enough about the population and geography to be super confident about that, but just my gut tells me that Hartford's probably going to be the best one of all of them, I think, but we don't know. Maybe I'm crazy and maybe I'll be wrong. We'll see. So anyways, that's what's coming up tomorrow. Thanks once again for tuning in, and we'll see you then.